This is Leslie. And I'm Paul. Together, we explore the world, both on our boat Cellier on the high seas, as well as on land. You'll find Leslie in front of the camera, whilst most of the time, except when I'm losing my hat, I'm behind the camera. It's long been our ambition to visit Myanmar, a land cut off from the rest of the world, almost in isolation for 50 years. The result was to be like going back in time. Even the railway system was to surprise us. So join us in the second episode as we discover that land of wonder. Here in the Shan district of Myanmar, even the cattle look different. For a start, they lacked the hump the cattle had in Bagan, but the whole area just seemed more prosperous, with lots of little industries, even as you walk through these small villages.
Here, the ladies are weaving hand fans, also used in festivals. They very kindly gave me one, and in this heat, I was grateful.
Even a tiny village like this, with just a few houses, still has to have its pagodas. On most of our travels like this, we just didn't meet any other tourists.
Although we were heading to a monastery, the main purpose of this trip was just to enjoy the countryside and the river itself. Because of the many languages in the Shan state, our guide Somo needed the assistance of a local guide and introduced us to Ho Kwan, who, whilst fluent in the local languages, spoke no English.
Many of these villages along the way could only be reached by boat. Disembarking, we started our walk through the countryside.
We call it canola.
Canola.
Walking through the beautiful Shan countryside, we came across this little old lady. She lived all by herself here, and so was very welcoming of any visitor. She told us that she couldn't get on with her daughter-in-law and so preferred to live by herself. We continued in our trek to the monastery.
This small village monastery was a far cry from some of the impressive buildings we'd previously seen.
And unfortunately, we weren't allowed to film there. Leslie loves markets, and this was a typical local market. We were waiting to take our first train ride, so this was a good way of passing the time.
That's a duck egg, and they put lime around the outside to preserve it. Yeah?
Right.
And this is the kind of bra they wear. I've noticed the young girls wearing a much more long line bra. Not for me.
This bustling marketplace owed very much to the fact it was at a train station. We're now waiting to board our first train in Myanmar. We were told the standard seats were not very good on these trains, so first-class tickets had been booked for us. This was going to be interesting.
So we've spent this morning wandering around a small village with the market, which has been interesting, but most of the stuff was imported from China, so a lot of colourful, interesting items from China, a little bit tatty, a lot of it, but nonetheless interesting. But now we're at the station waiting for the train. We're having a train to the station where we're going to stay the night. Now, the trains here aren't known for their reliability time-wise. It's supposed to be here at 11. It's now 25 past 11. But you can't, although you've prepaid your ticket, you can't collect your ticket until half an hour before the train arrives. But you don't know what time the train's going to arrive because it's known for being unreliable. Therefore, you don't know exactly when you're supposed to go and collect your ticket. So it's a bit of a catch-22. You have to keep going up, seeing if your ticket's ready and coming back, because they have a better idea of how late the train is running. So while sitting here, we've used the toilets. They were interesting, just a hole in the ground and not very pleasant at all, but interesting. And when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And then we met this gentleman sitting here on the walk who is also waiting for the train. And his story really did break my heart because he was walking along in his village and he was hit by a motorcycle. He had to travel all the way down here to go to hospital. He's been in the hospital for 2 months, which has cost him all the money he had. And he probably still has debt. His parents are dead because families here all live together. 3 generations live together and support each other. And he would have been the main breadwinner, but his parents are dead. So he has no one now to stay with who can take care of him. So we've given him a little bit of money, probably the equivalent of 1 or 2 weeks' work for him. But he was beside himself. He was tearful because he's scared about his future. He's now quite disabled. He can't walk. He can only walk slowly with a stick. It's damaged his foot, damaged his head. He has a very nasty scar on his nose, and he won't be able to work again. So he was tearful, very, very tearful, afraid for his future. So we've just wished him good luck and a better life.
Now this is the signal wire going to the railway signalling for the trains, and it's running by everyone's feet. One cannot help wondering what would happen if you tripped on it. Would it send the wrong signal to a train? This dog seemed to like dozing on the railway track. We've circled it here just so you can see what happens. You may wish to look away from the screen for the next bit. No, I was only joking. That is a very laid-back dog.
wipes, more wipes. Well, we've just gone down to the local train, which was a lot late, about 45 minutes late, and arrived very slowly into the station, and we'll remain here now for 20 minutes while they load people and goods. I'm on my third wipe since I got on the train, because when I came to get in my seat, there was one of the railway staff absolutely out for the count, fast asleep, sprawled all over these chairs and in no particular state of good health or hygiene. So I've scrubbed my seat and I'm going to enjoy the ride.
Much of this Thailand-Burma railway was constructed during the Second World War by the Japanese, who used forced Allied labour to construct it. And in fact, some 16,000 Allied prisoners died constructing it. It therefore became known as the Death Railway. It was actually completed on time and used by the Japanese to transport materials. There were over 600 bridges built. It was an amazing task. These days, much of the original railway has fallen into disrepair or even been swamped by a dam, but sections do remain. The British built many bridges on this railway during the colonial period, although we are told that the train will have to stop before many of the bridges and then slowly crawl across to make sure it doesn't collapse. But Leslie is nonetheless happy.
It's got a good rhythm.
It is said that there are over 500,000 pagodas in Myanmar. I believe that. The train stopped here to check its brakes before going over this 880-foot high bridge that was built by the British some time ago. The bridge was barely as wide as the train, and so you could look out the window and look straight down.
So we've just experienced our first class ride on the train in Burma, and it's taken us about 2.5 to 3 hours with a few stops along the way, and sometimes the train goes very, very slowly because the tracks are so bad it doesn't want to jump off the track literally. So it's a very bumpy ride, but on the whole comfortable, and lots of interesting things to see along the way. And we passed over the bridge, a very famous bridge, goes through 2 tunnels and then over a metal structure that's over 800 feet above the ground. So that was a little bit hair-raising, but on the whole, a very good journey, very interesting.
Back in those old colonial Burmese days, this was the summer capital of British Burma, and that was due to its moderate climate. These National Botanical Gardens were established in 1915 by the British. This area is responsible for the country's major flower and vegetable production. It is also the centre for silkworm rearing, as well as becoming Myanmar's major centre for coffee bean production. The wild monkeys on the edge of the park certainly made their presence felt. As we were leaving the park, we could not help but notice these ornately dressed ladies. These were just one of the many ethnic communities within Myanmar, and surprisingly, they were Christians. Whilst here, we stayed in this very luxurious hotel. It had separate buildings for each guest. It's this region where the governments of Burma used to come here to administer in the summer in a cooler climate.
We met our next guide, Mr. Min, in Pindaya. He was to guide us through some of the most wonderful adventures that would exceed all our expectations in every conceivable way.
We were here to visit a famous cave with over 8,000 Buddhas in it. But first, we thought we'd take a look around the local food market with so many exotic foods. Pindia was certainly a lively, bustling town. There was a remarkable covered walkway all the way up from the car park to the cave. No expense had been spared in constructing these buildings around the cave entrance. Whilst there was the odd tourist around, nearly all the people in the cave were the local Burmese people, and this was a time of festival. There were so many Buddhas because many families, or individuals for that matter, would want to place their own Buddha here and then gradually cover it in gold. There was always more merit in doing the new than repairing the old, just the same as with the pagodas.
So we're in Pindaya Natural Cave. It's a natural limestone cave where there are over 8,000 Buddhas. The one behind me is a little unusual because people donate gold leaf. And as you can see, the gold leaf has been stamped onto the Buddha. It's made of lacquer so that the people can put small pieces of gold leaf. They're honouring their family, loved ones that maybe they've lost. Some of these represent whole families, and they make the donation and have the statues put here in memory of their family. It's a huge network of caves that surprised us as it spread into chamber after chamber. Absolutely amazing.
There was simply chamber after chamber after chamber. It was absolutely staggering to see it. It was really, truly beautiful. This represents the king cobra that wrapped itself 7 times around the Buddha to keep him warm and placed its hood over his head to keep him dry. January 2016 was to be the last month that anyone could place a new Buddha here. The cave could simply not take any more. This family was beating that deadline by placing their own Buddha here, one they could come back and worship anytime they wished.
Families who owned these Buddhas couldn't afford to immediately complete the gilding. This would be applied over time as funds allowed. Inside here there's a small cave that is room for about 6 to 8 people, but we've just seen about 15 come out, so I'm on my way. Head first? Yeah. Some more Buddhas.
The local people can buy their gold at the entrance to the cave and apply it to whichever Buddha they wish.
This is the skin of that mulberry tree. So normally when we produce the paper, we produce from the bamboo. In Shan State, we use this kind of bark that we call mulberry bark, and we make the paper. That's why this kind of paper that we call Shan paper.
The bark is first soaked in water.
You boil it in here, like that.
It is then boiled to a mush. This young member of the family has the task of taking those balls of mush and battering them into a thin layer. The layer is then spread out into these frames covered in water with some rose petals or other flower petals added to give it some sort of decoration. The frames are then simply let dry in the sun. And then, when dry, simply separated from the frame to give the final shan paper.
So this is also made from paper, but they also make hot air balloons from the paper that they make here.
After the making of the paper, this family produces many different types of goods from that paper, but the most important of which are umbrellas. The skill involved in making the wooden parts of the umbrellas is just remarkable, all done without templates, all by eye. The father of the family is turning the top piece of wood. He then takes this top piece of wood to manufacture it into a precision instrument that can take all the slots of the umbrella. I found it just remarkable that he could do this just by eye, without any sort of help other than his own skill.
So I've just watched this being handmade. Everything's done by memory and by eye, very, very quickly and with very little tools. And it's actually the head of the umbrella where the spokes join on to hold the umbrella out. It's absolutely brilliant.
Here the same man is manufacturing the umbrella spring that goes into the staff of the umbrella. Just watch this skill here. Having hollowed out the section for the spring to go in the staff of the umbrella, he then sets about making the actual spring out of wood. All I can say is, wow. From the most raw ingredients, these exquisite umbrellas are manufactured by this family.
Do you like this color?
Well, the plan was to hike up the mountain and spend the night in a Buddhist monastery. However, because we had a lot of camera equipment, we needed some help in carrying the luggage. And our guide had hired some porters. Surprisingly, a total of 8. On the way, we did call in at this local house to have some refreshments. Hello. As in many villages in Myanmar, lots of people seem to have televisions. Even though Shan State is relatively prosperous as a part of Myanmar, they are still poor people, and they have to ensure that they're continually working one way or the other to get every single cent they can. After refreshments, the trek continued. Here, our guide stopped to show us how to make bubbles out of tree sap.
Like that. Broken like this.
Bubbles.
Bubble?
You're covered in bubbles.
This cannot, branch, the villager, they broke it and crush it again and use as a toothbrush.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
natural.
Arriving at the monastery, where even the monks had satellite TV, we found the local villagers praying. Tonight was to be the Festival of Light, and it was going to be a full moon. However, our plan to sleep in the monastery had gone astray. The monks were going to be using the tannoys all night, reading our prayers, and it would have been impossible to sleep. So a local village house had been arranged for us. Families were gathering around the monastery, and the children seemed to be pretty excited about the forthcoming celebration.
So this morning we've climbed up from Pindaya village to the hilltop, and here in this little village we found they have quite a large monastery, and we're here on a very special or auspicious day. It's called the Full Moon Day, and all the local villagers come and pray together. That's what you can probably hear in the background. And then everybody comes to share food, so even as strangers that haven't been praying, we're still welcomed into the village hall to share food with them. We've declined because it probably wouldn't be safe for us, but nonetheless the thought was there. And everybody's so warm and welcoming, they're all interested in us, all very friendly. So it's been a fantastic experience.
And, as is the case everywhere, the kids love crisps. Here, the men were preparing huge vats of tea. In fact, there were multiple rooms where all sorts of meal preparations were going on. And even some dishes were being prepared outside, whilst the women were preparing the crockery.
So the celebrations we were talking about in this village go on for many days, and this particular village will supply food to all visitors that come here for 8 days. We've seen the food, it's copious amounts. People certainly wouldn't starve. And in the room behind me they're making hot tea, which we might try a little bit later.
When it comes time to eat, the men go into one place. The women go into another. But in another place, the men and women sat together. You can put the monk into the boy, but you cannot take the boy out of the monk. At one time or another, most males in Myanmar become monks. They can become monks as children, but very often they only do it for a certain amount of time. And most young men cease to be monks when they're about 18, whilst a fair few carry on for the whole of their lives. We decided to go back to prepare our room in the village, and also to have a little walk around. Football is very big in Myanmar, and they even follow the British Premier League. In fact, everyone seems to know who David Beckham is. Our porters were now preparing our evening meal, whilst other porters brought our photography equipment.
So walking in the village, this is the local gas station, the filling station, and here we have bottles of petrol, and it's $1 a bottle. So now we're walking through the heart of the village, and this little hut here is the library. The one thing that we've noticed that's very short here on is books, and then opposite we've got the clinic with a little bit of medical care for the local people. If anything serious happens, like an accident with a motorbike, they'd have to go to another town and hopefully get help there, because they wouldn't be able to cope with it here.
Throughout Myanmar, we saw many signs saying, "Welcome tourists," and I think the feeling is really genuine throughout the people of Myanmar. They really are warm, friendly people, but their spelling may not be top-notch.
We found the local firework factory.
Yes, that's right, including young children making fireworks. They were keen to show us the results of their handiwork. We had never seen such powerful little rockets fired from your hand before. Our next stop was to a little house which had a betel nut factory in it. You know, that thing they put in their mouths and suck away to get their teeth to fall out and cause cancer? This is where they make it. The old lady of the house was falling over herself to be friendly. A charming lady.
Thank you. Okay, so we stopped at the roadside to come and see the lady who welcomed us in. And now have a cup of tea. We've got cake, bits of seeds to eat. Everything's very delicious. We've also got behind us the betel nut factory where they make the betel nut for chewing. They all chew it here. It's mixed with lime. They put it in their cheek. I think I mentioned it before. And then they spit out this red juice, but it's not really very good for the health. But it's a stimulant, so it keeps them awake. I'm not planning to try that, but I've just tried these beans that are roasted and they're very delicious. And so is the tea.
Now he making the bitter nut. He put some flake lime, on it, and also he have to put some bitter nut inside this. Now he put in the flake lime on the bitter leaf. Then they have to put a bitter nut. After that, they have to put some tobacco like that into this bitter nut. Then they roll it. Then people chew it.
Well, they say there's no smoke without fire, and there's certainly plenty of smoke going on in here. The porters are cooking dinner for us, so they've got rice that they've already prepared, then there are fresh vegetables going in, some chicken and some fish. So we're going to have a home-cooked meal this evening in our residence. We'll show you the room later, but for now we're going in to have a cookery lesson.
Fish curry.
So today they're going to cook fish curry, chicken with vegetable. Snow beef.
Well, tonight we are staying native, as it were. We're staying in a local village, and the people are wonderfully hospitable. Well, the Burmese people are just wonderful, beautiful people anyway. But here, people have invited us in down to the houses, into the yards, and then given us food, demanding nothing. Just wonderful, wonderful people. Anyway, tonight we're staying here in this house, and we're sleeping upstairs on, I think they're putting a mattress down for us, and I think we're getting a mosquito net. But this is our first time from going from these quite luxurious hotels that we have in Burma here to actually staying in the village. And so far it's proved quite interesting, being able to go around the village and find the factory for that drug they put in their mouth, or a fireworks factory and so on. So that's what we're about, trying to discover the real Burma, and tonight we're sleeping in it. Five or 6,000 local people and just the 2 tourists, us.
We're here at the right time. This is a light festival for the full moon, but it's a little bit noisy.
The sights and sounds of that night will stay in our memories forever. Even the smallest toddlers in the village take part. Everybody takes part, and that includes Leslie. The villagers make all the balloons themselves, and they spend a long time doing it. This huge wooden frame of fireworks is lifted up by a single balloon. Multiple balloons rise thousands of feet into the air. This is a special balloon for the lady, the leader of Myanmar. And the general election that elected her was really the first, at least partly open one, for 50 years. This lake covers almost 45 square miles at an elevation of 2,900 feet. We had read that the fishermen here have a unique style of fishing with sort of conical baskets. We could just not wait to see how this was done. We were now passing through the canal which ran from the main dock where we'd arrived to the lake. We could not believe our luck. As we entered the lake, we saw 4 fishermen with those peculiar conical baskets. As we approached the first one, it became apparent that the other 3 were heading towards us. It now seemed that the only fishing being done here was for us, tourists. And sure enough, without even asking, they lined up for a photograph. But I didn't want a photograph, I wanted a video how they fished. And once they understood that, they obliged. The method seems to be to push the basket in, trapping any fish within its cone, poke around, apparently to see if you got a fish there, and scare the fish into the side. So let's see with a model just how this fishing method actually works. So they look for bubbles, or maybe just guess at where the fish may be, then actually place the net over where they think the fish are. First, they push it down into the mud to trap the fish. So they use the pole to put inside the net to try to scare the fish and, well, find out if the fish is there and help to scare it into the side of the net. They then release the net to drop on top of the fish and then lift the whole cone, hopefully trapping the fish in the side of the net. They try to keep the fish alive because they've got no refrigeration, and so they keep the fish alive until when they're ready to eat. This method of fishing obviously required a single leg rowing technique, and this was demonstrated here by another fisherman. It's actually quite a nice technique, and you can build up a reasonable speed on the boat. They then lined up for Leslie to take a photograph for the album. We then continued across the lake to our luxurious hotel, crossing this bamboo weed guard. So much floating weed in this lake, they tried to restrict it coming into bays with these weed guards. We retired early that night because we were going to have an early start to see the Festival of Light in the morning. In our next episode, we explore in and around the remarkable Inlay Lake and witness the most fantastic parade ever seen on water, where many dozens of boats tow a barge around with the famous 5 Buddhas. And we'll find out why those Buddhas simply do not look like Buddhas, and see how the most expensive yarn in the world is made. And if you want to buy a shirt for thousands of dollars, this is the yarn. Then we visit the boat builder to see how those Inlay boats are made by hand. And then, of course, tour the city on water, meeting the long-necked Kayan people on the way. We attempt to discover just why they wear those rings about their neck to make their necks longer, even from a young age. And of course the famous floating gardens, growing most of the tomatoes for the whole of Myanmar. And we couldn't miss the annual one-legged rowing boat race. And after another train journey back to Yangon area, we visit the Lying Buddha.